Welcome to another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast, the podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and the Orlando Magic are coming off a big W game-winning shot from Desmond Bane to beat the Portland Trail Blazers. But before we get into that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become one of the biggest Orlando Magic podcasts here on the YouTube platform. So remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know we're dropping new videos. Let's get right into it. All right, so for context, contextualize this game in full. Portland Trail Blazers go on an 11-0 run to bring this game to a 112-112. We'll add some extra context later on that'll kind of help with the flow of this podcast. But the most important thing, final possession. Right before the final possession, Paolo Banchero gets a big time steal with 1.2 seconds left. Then they use the timeout in order to get the ball advanced to the half court. And on a play that, according to Desmond Bane in the post game, was drawn up as a double drag off the top of the key to open up for Paolo Banchero to get the ball. Desmond was the secondary option, the follow man in the action, got the ball off the inbound, fired over two defenders, two contests. This was a white bar shot if anybody has ever seen one. In 2K, this is a white bar for sure at bare minimum. Instead, perfect accuracy, left his fingers, and in a weird way, you kind of almost, you could even see it from the reaction of some of the other Orlando Magic players. Like, it just looked like one of those shots that when it went up, you're like, this is going in. And everything erupts within the stadium afterwards because Desmond Bane made the biggest play of the night. Hadn't hit a single three all night. I think finished the game 1 of 5, or I believe it was 1 of 6, with that shot being his only made three of the game, and it came at the biggest moment. But I told you guys literally last episode, tap into the podcast. If you have not, like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know what to tell you. You got to put the post notification bells on because I try to tell y'all in these episodes what the Orlando Magic have to do in order to get themselves back on the right track. And although they might not do it right when I tell y'all, when they lock in, when they pay attention, when they tap in, stuff like last night happens. Last episode, I told y'all, I went on for about a good 10 minutes about the concept of, is Desmond Bane potentially not getting the ball enough being the biggest issue about trying to not only incorporate him in this offense, but get more efficient play, especially in the half court, by getting your other legitimate ball handler actively engaged in the offense by getting him constant touches. Desmond Bane led all players, I believe all players, yes, with 19 shot attempts, was 9 of 19 from the field, 22 points, 7 assists, and was in this game, just played really, really well. And I think something that was so important, I noticed this more in the first half than anything, just put so much emphasis on trying to get a foot in the paint. Whether it was trying to get to the basket deliberately or putting yourself in position to start out as a driver, get a foot in the paint, and then maybe you adjust to a step back play, or maybe you adjust into a spin, into a fader. But just the idea of putting this emphasis on trying to get a paint touch, I think is so important for someone like Desmond Bane, because yes, he is a knockdown three-point shooter, but just like I said in yesterday's pod, he is somebody who is not a streaky shooter, he's a volume shooter. They're two totally different things. When you're a volume shooter, you're strictly doing so because there's a certain rhythm you're trying to reach. When you're a streaky shooter, that's that idea of, on a night-to-night basis, you can either be hot or not. For a rhythm shooter, there's a certain amount of shots that guy just has to take in order for him to really be the full consistent self that he is capable of becoming. That's where Desmond Bane is. Desmond Bane is a guy that needs 15, 16, 17 shot attempts to get himself really engaged, free-flowing within the offense, especially in terms of what they've been preaching to him dating back to early training camp, of being aggressive. Remember, that was one of the words we were using as like a bulletin board material for this team coming into preseason, was being more aggressive. Anthony Black spoke on this. Tristan Da Silva spoke on this. Desmond Bane spoke a lot about how the coaching staff And even some of the players were telling him, like, go out and be aggressive about seeking your shot. And this was one of those games, just literally 24 hours removed from when I last said, maybe the guy just needs more shots. You can't be having a guy like Desmond Bain, who you traded that kind of capital for, who you say is going to be maybe the missing piece to turning this team into a team that gets bounced in the first round, to a team that might make it to the ECF this year. You don't move all of that capital. You don't put all of that trust in that kind of player. And then he has back-to-back games with only 6 shots. You just don't do it with this kind of player. This is a guy who needs to get this kind of volume. Now, you have a rough time seeing Franz Wagner only taking 10 shots in this game. That was actually less than even Wendell Carter Jr., who had 12 shot attempts in this game. Now, granted, Wendell got a lot of his shots off of offensive rebound opportunities. He had 5 offensive rebounds of his 9 total rebounds in this game. So a lot of his shots came from close to the basket situations, as well as a lot of pick and roll opportunities that got him good shots. But you like to see a little bit more from Franz Wagner in terms of the shot distribution department. But I think this was still a good night to just say, Desmond, we need to get you engaged. And they kind of gave him the ball and let him rock. And he let him rock early and often. And I think as his confidence grew, he even said this in the postgame, just got to keep shooting. He said, I hadn't hit a 3 all night, but you just got to keep shooting. And again, he was 0 for 5 before hitting the game winner that eventually gave this team the dub. But you just got to let this guy, he's going to be a guy, when those kind of shots come up, he's going to be the kind of guy that you rely on to take those kind of shots to win the game. And mind you, this was a night full of overtime games. The Detroit Pistons went into overtime against the Washington Wizards, got the dub. Cleveland lost in overtime to the Miami Heat off of like an insane alley-oop inbound play to Andrew Wiggins with like just barely under a second left in the game to win in overtime. San Antonio Spurs versus Chicago was close. Milwaukee Bucks versus the Dallas Mavericks, all close games. So this was a night full of nail biters. But Desmond Bain, outside of maybe Andrew Wiggins, Desmond Bain easily hit the most impactful shot of the night. I think you can make an argument that just given where these two franchises are right now in terms of the way their season is currently going, Desmond Bain hitting this shot at home against a good Portland Trailblazers team, mind you, that averages about 121 points per game on a night-to-night basis. They held them to 112, and this was a team that was on an 11-0 run in the final 3 minutes of the game and looked like it was going to end up really roaring its way back and upsetting everything that the Orlando Magic were building, because there was a point where this team had, the 3 ball wasn't falling. Shaedon Sharpe started really getting aggressive in terms of getting to the rim, and I think that helped them get back into this game. Denny Avdija was solid for them, 27 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. This was a game that the Orlando Magic, if they lose in the fashion that this game was setting itself up to be, it's a serious gut punch for a team that drops to, what would that be, 4-7. You'd be 4-7. You'd have yet another little mini losing streak back to back between the Blazers and the Celtics. You would have lost 3 of your last 4, and you go to the Knicks on Wednesday, which most people are going to look at it and say that's going to be a tough one, where now all of a sudden you might have lost 4 out of your last 5 games if you don't get this one at home before you have to go back on the road again. That quick. So that Desmond Bain shot goes a long way in terms of what this could be for his season, what it could mean for the Orlando Magic. I think this is going to come down as like a real hallmark moment for them, where if they're a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference and they turn this ship around and they look like the kind of contender that a lot of people projected them to be coming into the season, this shot I feel like is going to be the avalanche that starts snowballing things in their favor. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a really strong game against the New York Knicks and then they play the Brooklyn Nets right after that. If you win both games in New York, coming off of this kind of victory, you win 3 games in a row, start to put yourself back in the spot. All of a sudden you're above 500 by 2 games and you're back in the hunt of things. Right now they're still sitting, at the bottom portion of the Eastern Conference, but it's still so early in the season that doesn't really matter too much. You put a 3-game win streak together and 2 back-to-back games against good teams, because Portland is no slouch. Do they have a definitive superstar? No. Denny Avdia is growing into like an all-star caliber player. I would not be surprised if, like, based off the beginning of the season right now, if he's a guy that gets real consideration for both most improved player and definitely a potential all-star nod. So this Portland Trailblazers team is no slouch. Jeremy Grant, somebody who balled out in this game, like kind of underlyingly, was Drew Holiday. Shaden Sharp is really starting to come into his own. So this is a team that is a good basketball team, a good scoring team at that. So this is a big W at home. You get a good, strong win against the Knicks on the road on Wednesday. Back that up with hopefully a big win against the Brooklyn Nets after that. And now you're building this momentum to get yourself both one back in the green, because you'll be back above 500 over the course of just the next 2 games. And you put yourself in a position where you're like, okay, we're back to playing good basketball. Let's see this thing through. Next up, Paolo Banchero. As a ball handler, loved what he did in this game. Point Paulo is something I'm starting to grow more and more fond of. You guys in the comment section have been big fans of what Paolo Banchero has been able to do at the point guard position. We have, of course, kind of played with what potential position fits him best for this team in a lot of different conversations, whether it's been point Paulo, not literally playing point guard, but being more of a primary ball handler for this team. Of course, we know him playing the 4 spot is his quote unquote more natural position. There's been a lot of questions about whether or not maybe playing him more at center would be a really good move for this team as they try to play this more up-tempo style. So I think the passing that we saw from him in this game was big time. Paolo Banchero finishes the game with 28 points, three assists, 9 rebounds. And it's crazy. It felt like he had so many more assists than he did, just because the pick and roll option with him and Goga Batazde, oh my goodness, in the first half, there were 2 or 3, and they might not have been like back-to-back possessions or anything like that, but there were 2 to 3 possessions in the first half, especially in that first quarter. Goga Batazde sets the screen for Paolo Banchero at the top of the key, slip screens as a ball handler. Paolo gives the Rajon Rondo gives the Rajon Rondo dump bounce pass into the lane. Goga catch, come down, finish, boom, easy P&R option between the 4 and the 5. 4-5 pick and roll was super effective for them in a handful of different actions. You also saw Goga get some really good opportunities playing in the 2-man game with Desmond Bane. I think that Desmond did a really great job of getting paint touches, not just to be able to make it a good night for him offensively from a scoring perspective, but there were a good handful of times where he got some kick-out opportunities. I mean, he had one kick-out to Jonathan Isaac. That was big. There was a kick-out 3 that ended up landing in Wendell Carter Jr.'s hands. There was a kick-out 3 that ended up landing in Anthony Black's hands. These are different opportunities that open up first by having to respect Paolo Banchero as a passer, and then some of these things opening up by Desmond Bane being more aggressive as a drive and kick threat. So point Paolo, I'm not going to go all deep, analytical stats in terms of what his, points per possession are and points per pass and things of that nature, potential assists. But I'll tell you this, for the power forward position, Paolo Banchero as a primary decision maker he's somebody who I think you can legitimately run offense through. I genuinely believe that you can run strong offense through Paolo Banchero, not just as this black hole offensive shot creator that everybody tends to refer to him as, but also somebody that I think can be a big time distributor. 3 assists in this game does not tell the full story of the fact that Paolo Banchero genuinely was helping create and orchestrate so many open looks just by having defenders have to collapse on him in that low block. And we talked about this a few episodes ago, but I mentioned when Draymond Green spoke about him needing a go-to shot. I love how often he tried to get to that 8 to 10 foot mid-range area, whether it was in the mid post or the low post into that backwards fader, that LaMarcus Aldridge backwards fader. I love that he kept continuously trying to get into that mid-range 8 to 10 foot space because I think he can dominate so dangerously with the kind of touch that he has as a shooter. He has the kind of touch that, no, he's not going to be this 3-point marksman or anything like that. But I think he has a soft enough touch around the basket that getting within 8 to 10 feet with that physical frame, people are going to sag off of him because they know his ability to barrel his way to the basket and draw contact. They're going to give him that opportunity to do the bump into the fade and give him that chance to constantly find that midi in, kind of in true abundance. He had a good handful of those mid-range opportunities throughout this game, and he knocked down a good handful of them throughout this game as well. So, point Paolo, something that needs to be experimented with a little bit more. He's been one of the best passers at the big man position so far this season. Again, the stats are not going to reflect it in terms of like the traditional counting stats, assists, and things of that nature. But when you look deeper, and especially if you cut the tape on, there's so much that Paolo does, whether it's as a passer or the attention that he brings that creates these lanes offensively for guys like Franz, for guys like Anthony Black and Desmond Bane, that may not tell the whole that if you don't watch along with pairing those stats together, don't tell the whole story of just how like lethal of an offensive option Paulo Banchero is, both on the ball and off the ball in terms of the kind of attention he requires. But as much as we have to give Paulo praise, we also have to check him. This game, part of the reason why this game ended the way it did, or had to end the way it did, was Paulo Banchero left a lot on the table. There was a point in this game where they were up by 1 point and, they were up by, I think it was 110 to 112. Yes. It was 110 to 112, or it was 110, I believe it was 111 to 112, It's 111 to 112, I believe. Paulo Banchero gets to the free throw line, misses the first free throw. You think, okay, he hits the second free throw. They go up by 2. It ends up being 113 to 111. He front rims the second free throw. Now, with the Portland Trailblazers only being down by 1, you could end up being the GOAT, lowercase GOAT in this game, as the guy that they're going to scapegoat as you cost Orlando this game after, the Orlando Magic defense allowed this Portland Trailblazers team to fight back in the final 2 minutes. You essentially gave the game away in the final 2 or 3 possessions with something like those missed free throws, right? Then he makes a big time. Portland gets the bucket to put them, gets the bucket to tie it at 112, or I think it was like a free throw to get them to 112. The game is tied. Paulo comes down, hits another basket. Excuse me, was this 110? Yeah, this is one at this point. This is 110 to 111. You miss both free throws. Portland comes down. They go up 111 to 112. Think there's a free throw opportunity that puts them in position to tie the game up. Neither here nor there. I don't want to recount this game totally off. But the point that I'm trying to make is, in the final 30 seconds of this game, essentially, Paulo Banchero missed 3 free throws. He missed 3 big free throws. He was 6 of 10 from the free throw line in this game, and the 3 biggest free throws that he missed were in the final 30 seconds of this game, if that. Ended up being very costly for him. Now, in one of the later possessions, in order to open up that opportunity for Desmond Bane to get that knockdown 3, he got a big steal with 1.2 seconds or something like that left on the clock that allowed them to get the ball, call the timeout, and advance the ball in a way that gave them the chance to then do the out-of-bounds call, the inbounds call play that eventually led to the game-winning shot. But Paulo has left a lot on the table this season as a free throw shooter. A lot. This is not the first time, and I don't think it will be the last, quite frankly, that Paulo Banchero will be in positions like these to have a chance to ice a game or win a game from the free throw line. He's shooting 76% from the free throw line so far this season. Had multiple games of 3 or more free throws missed in a single game. Again, this is a guy who gets to the free throw line a ton. This is a little nugget to keep an eye on when we get into, we're talking like April, right? When this team is really looking towards the postseason. This is an issue that the star has to clear up. Does he have to be some 90% free throw shooter? Not necessarily. There's not too many power forwards in the league that have the kind of volume that he has as a free throw shooter. First of all, that sentence can end right there. There's not a lot of power forwards that have the kind of free throw generation that Paolo Banchero has. That's number one. Number two, they definitely don't shoot 85+% from the free throw line at that position, as the way I think he's capable of doing. But he has to clean it up. He has to clean it up because those kind of situations against a different team, if that's the Cleveland Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell, that's tough. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland on the offensive end with a chance to go ahead and ice the game. You don't get that steal, you might lose the game in the reverse way to a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers who have a Donovan Mitchell who's capable of doing the same thing Desmond Bane did, right? With the New York Knicks clutch player of the year, Jalen Brunson from last season, you do this against the New York Knicks, you may mess around and give that game away. So he, as well as he played in this game, he could have easily become the scapegoat for the Orlando Magic had this game went south. Desmond Bane did more than save his own respect with hitting that shot and capping off what was a strong night for him offensively. He also saved Paolo Banchero from being in a position where many would have started to really start questioning his superstardom if that was a game that at one point they had completely under wraps. Portland fights back. You give the game away with 3 missed free throws at the end that really could have cost them. Those 2 first initial free throws that could have helped with icing the game in a sense, because you would have been up by about a possession and a half, essentially, because they would have had, 114 at that point. You take yourself out of it in a real way if your star player cannot be effective from the free throw line when the moments are biggest. Paolo has to clean this up. He has to clean it up because when we get to the point where we're talking postseason basketball, you leave those points on the table, those teams that everybody is ranking above Orlando, they are going to take advantage of opportunities like those. And they got the players, especially on the perimeter, that are capable of making a team like Orlando pay. Especially because at the guard position, Orlando is still just really struggling to protect the rim right now. Shaedon Sharpe was getting a lot of whatever he wanted in this game as far as generating shots in the lane. He was 12-18 in this game. He got to the free throw line only 7 times, but it felt like he was there so much more as far as being able to just like finish around the basket, draw contact, and put, a lot of the bigs in disadvantageous situations. It kind of shows in the shot chart. The personal fouls chart. Anthony Black, 5 fouls. Wendell Carter Jr., 4 fouls. Paolo Banchero, 4 fouls. And I believe 2 of those fouls were definitely from Shaedon Sharpe drive situations. And Anthony Black was dealing with a lot of those issues all night as well. So imagine if Shaedon Sharpe's doing that, what does D. Mitch do? What does Jalen Brunson do? What does Tyrese Maxey do, right, against stuff like that when the game is on the line? Paolo's got to learn to be able to, rise to the occasion. I think he's more than capable. I think we all believe that. But he's got to clean it up. 76% is not going to get it done if you get in these positions down the line. Because you are. If you're going to play high level basketball into the deeper rounds of the NBA playoffs, these type of things are going to happen more than often. Last but not least, we're going to end the way we've been ending a lot lately, podcast-wise, by going into the comment section and talking about some of the things that you guys have to say in response to some of the things that were brought up in last episode. JC_88, shout out to you, bro, said, the fact that Mo said the game dictates what you do tells you that he has no offensive schemes, no set plays, no creative mind. That is the culprit of all these turnovers. He has so much talent that he doesn't know how to use it. The talent on the team outgrew him. We need to move on. Nail in the coffin to me is, how do you invest in a borderline all-star, a guy who averaged 20 points per game and a great three-point shooter, mind you, in the Western Conference, and only had one attempt from the three-point line, while Wendell had six? That tells me Mose is in way over his head. He doesn't know what to do. I think there's some merit to that. I also think there's a certain aspect of Desmond just needing to be more aggressive. It's one thing to tell a guy to be more aggressive. It's another thing to draw up situations for him, to force him to be more active. And maybe that's what the first part of your comment is touching into, is the idea of just scheming up more opportunities for Desmond to be a shot hunter. Essentially, you don't want him to be a heat check, but you want him to be somebody that you actively are featuring within the offense on a night to night, even possession to possession basis. And by fizzling him out, where again, like you mentioned, only one 3-point attempt is ridiculous for a guy who shot 40% from last year, regardless of how he's shooting this year. The only way he's going to become better as a volume 3-point shooter for this team is by shooting threes at volume. So if he's only taking 1 3 in this game, that's not going to do them any well. I think you could still make the argument that Desmond's not shooting the ball from beyond the arc enough. This is a guy that in the summer told media he wants to break his career high, which at one point 2 seasons ago was 8.4 3-point attempts per game. He's averaging like just over 5, around 6 3-point attempts per night. That's not on pace to break the original career high he had in terms of 3-point attempts per game. So I would make the argument that if that's that rate that he wants to get to, he actually needs to be getting the ball even more in terms of situations that draw up opportunities to shoot three. And maybe that's where Mose is messing things up. I think it's just going to all come down to, A, Desmond needs to become more confident in himself within this team. But B, I do think there's a certain aspect of Mose that just needs to further empower his player. And sometimes the rah coach clap aspect of it, something you guys have touched on a lot in the comment section. Sometimes just telling a guy be more aggressive is not enough. Sometimes you do just have to draw up opportunities to make a guy go seek out his offense. I mean, even that last shot that Desmond hit, he admitted in the postgame was not the shot for him. The shot wasn't drawn up for him to win the game. The shot was drawn up for Paolo Banchero to win the game, which is hilarious when you think about it, because based off the action, you were going to be running Paolo Banchero off the side baseline to catch the ball on the run in essentially what would have either been a long mid-ranger or a 3-point opportunity. And Paolo Banchero is nowhere near the best 3-point shooter on the floor in that situation. Yet the play was drawn up for him. The double action led to Desmond following behind. If you actually look at the play, his man and the inbound defender are so close to where this ball eventually gets passed in that's where the double contest comes from. You can almost tell there was no way in the world this ball was supposed to get to Desmond, yet he was able to get it and of course fire and knock it down. But these are situations where now, the reason why I think that Desmond is going to have this big turnaround off of this game is because it's shots like those, especially when it comes kind of just in the flow of the game. Again, he hadn't hit a 3 before that. And he knocks down the biggest 3 of the night in the flow of the game where the play wasn't even drawn up for him. And he does it in the clutch, game winding down, double contested, and makes it. You just have to empower a guy like that. Hopefully, a shot like that helps with not only his teammates believing in him more, which I think they already believe so much in his ability, but I think a shot like that makes them believe in him more and hopefully makes Mose lean more into what he is capable of doing and help him realize even more how capable he is. Shout out to you again, JC_88. Monta O Scale said a couple of different things within the comments for this one. He was very active. Thank you, by the way. So I'm going to read all of them kind of in combination. One, facts, Mo is an energizer off the bench. Yeah, we were talking about Mo Wagner last episode as a guy who like you really miss as another big body energizer bunny type of player that could really help as an enforcer. Not necessarily with physicality defensively, but like his effort level just kind of raises everybody else's energy up as well. And that can be its own version of being an enforcer on the team. It's just getting everybody actively engaged and involved on the defensive side. I think that's so important. And then offensively, I think he fits perfectly with this like run and gun style offense they're trying to implement. He also says, keep it going. True Magic fan for life. Thank you. I appreciate that, bro. At the end of the day, This is a team that we want to see get W's. We want to see them be successful. He says having other people on the podcast to conversate with can get different opinions will be excellent for the channel. This is um not necessarily something I have like I don't get a opinion on necessarily by doing the podcast through fan arch. The goal is just for me to be as much of an inside source slash like analyst as I can. So some of the other collaborative efforts is something that like kind of has to go through them, not to go too behind the curtain. But it wouldn't hurt to be able to have more conversations with other people about where the Orlando Magic are. I know there's some people on the YouTube platform that do really good work covering the team, but I think that's why I try my best to get the conversation going with you guys as much as humanly possible, because even though I can't bounce my ideas off of others throughout the podcast, I can get a feel for where you guys are on the team, and it helps drive the conversation for me in terms of like what topics I pick and the things that I feel like are the most important to discuss, to make sure I'm really touching the heartstrings of Orlando Magic fans as a whole, right? So shout out to you. I appreciate the idea of being able to bring that in. It's not really as much in my control, but nonetheless, I do think conversation is like the biggest part of building the community, right? And he also said we shouldn't have went after, or excuse me, we should have went after Mathurin from the Pacers. He was a bucket off the bench, or went after Levine. Wouldn't have been able to get Mathurin as a trade target. I actually believe he's up for an extension as well. We don't have the kind of money to be able to extend a guy like Ben Mathurin, especially with the way that he's played so far this regular season. When healthy, he looked like a guy that would like really be a bit of a problem this year. And I think it's just the issues injury wise for the Pacers that like, I mean, is going to make him a really interesting candidate as an extension player this upcoming summer, because obviously he's going to be a restricted free agent. And then going after Levine, I mean, he was a name that came up. But I don't necessarily know where his trade value is with the Kings right now. He's a guy I think that if the Kings ever do want to hit the reset button, you could probably get Zach LaVine for a pretty cheap price. The issue is that I think they're going to want real draft capital, and the Magic don't really have it. And as far as young players are concerned, like you're going to have to part away with a guard. You're going to have to get Zach LaVine and have the kind of depth work in a way that he legitimately is like featured within the team, which he would have to as a former All-Star and a guy that I don't think at this stage of his career would want to come off the bench and things of that nature. Like you're going to have to move off of like an Anthony Black or a Jalen Suggs in order to go after someone like Zach, I think, because I think they overvalue him. It wouldn't be the first time the Kings overvalue somebody who isn't necessarily moving the needle all the way for them. And I love Zach LaVine personally, one of my top 4 or 5 favorite players in the league right now. Just as a bias towards the fact that he's somebody that I've mentioned on the podcast before. I think really gained his stripes with the Chicago Bulls as a 3-point shooter, outgrew the dunker only tag from winning the dunk contest multiple years in a row. But again, just depends on what his trade value is. Can't get Mathurin. Zach LaVine, interesting. Again, we talked about it last pod, and I mentioned it back in the summer. Russ, I thought would have been really solid. Kind of hate that Victor Oladipo is with the G League affiliate, the Herd, for the Milwaukee Bucks. I feel like he was a really interesting potential name reuniting with the Orlando Magic. I know his best seasons weren't necessarily with the Magic, but I think it could be a great, not just internal story, but I think a good way to revitalize his career by putting him in position really to be like a microwave scorer for this team off the bench. Something that I still think, especially with the fact that Mose hasn't really been playing Jace Richardson, that backup 2 guard spot is still up for grabs, I feel like. I don't know what the lack of belief in Jace to start the season off is. Maybe it is just overly investing in seeing what the minutes with Desmond Bane look like, jumbo lineups, of course still trying to keep Tyus Jones actively engaged in the rotation. But I still think that microwave score off the bench to help keep the lead afloat when you have guys like Paolo and Franz come off the floor. I still think we're desperately missing that. I thought guys like Russ or guys like even Victor Oladipo, like I mentioned beforehand, or even I thought Markelle Fultz would have been kind of dope as an option. He's still a free agent, I believe, but I don't know if they're going to reunite with him. But I thought he would even be like an interesting fit for that kind of concept. But shout out to you. I got two more comments, maybe two or three more comments left, and we're gonna get out of here. DJ Hafta, shout out to you, said, could Paulo play in the center position? I feel like he confidently can. It would be small ball four. Is it great rim protection? No, I've said that a handful of times on the podcast. But if you're gonna have Paulo be a small ball four, the goal isn't to focus on the defensive end at that point. If you're gonna play this high up tempo style, the goal is to have Paulo Banchero be a small ball five to help with pushing the tempo. We had a handful of situations, including a long rebound that got to Anthony Black. Paulo Banchero leaks out in transition and is the only guy down on the other side of the floor, gets the ball, boom, hammers it down. Big time lead. I believe it was like 87-75 or something around that time. I could be wrong, but I know that ended up being a really big exclamation for them to help push their lead to, near double digits at one point. So things like that open up opportunity wise when you have someone like Paulo Banchero at the five, because now that up tempo style leans to everybody needs to get out and run, and Paulo from athleticism standpoint is a top tier athlete, to say the least, at the if we're talking about amongst the center position. So especially against a team like this one, where you have like the Donovan Klingons of the world, more slow-footed centers. I would say even Rob Williams, who's had lower extremity issues injury-wise, like a guy like Paulo being able to beat guys like that down the floor helps with the pace that they're trying to play with. So he can play center. It's just understanding that you're not doing it for defensive purposes. Ao Lau, he's been in the comments plenty, so thank you as usual. Thank you for your good effort. Oh, thank you. I believe Banchero is forcing his shots. He should focus more on the 2-point shots he used to make in previous seasons with the Magic. Finally, I don't understand why Jace isn't playing instead of Tyus Jones. I think we saw in this game against Portland that he's slowly but surely understanding how lethal he can be as a mid-range shooter. A lot of his shots came from the mid-range area in this game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not crazy about the 3-point shots from Paulo either, but of 18 shots, he only took 3 in this game. I think it was a good, humbling experience for him to kind of focus on, like, let's get to the paint. Let's be active in terms of being able to get paint touches. Let's try to go ahead and force some fouls. He got to the free throw line again 10 times. That was more than just about anybody else except for Denny Idea, who also got to the free throw line 10 times. In this game, I think that's when he's the most under control. Totally agree from that perspective. Jace, don't know. Love me some Tyus Jones. Not really sure why Jace isn't getting any minutes at all. Jet Howard played in this game, by the way. Hit a big 3 in the game. I think that was actually the shot that put them up like 87-75 or 87-76 or something like that. But he hit a big 3 in this game. But like Jet Howard played in this game. So the fact that Jace Richardson did not get any real tick, not sure. Couldn't tell you. Not sure what the deal is. And I feel like if he's not going to get any tick on this team right now, why he's not getting just like the physical reps down with the G League affiliate team, beyond me. I think the same thing can be said for Noah Penda. I feel like if you're going to lean into the Jonathan Isaac experience, let a guy like Noah Penda go down and play with the G League squad and go kill and show off how big of a rebounder he is. Show off how dangerous he can be as a transition threat, both as a ball handler and as like a regular power forward big. I don't know why he's not down there. I don't know why Jace isn't down there if they're not going to be getting real minutes with the big squad. Last but not least, Carlos Diaz 8907. Again, a dude who is constantly in my comment section. I appreciate you so much. Says, keep up the great work. Thank you so much. To me, Mosley doesn't know how to run offense. He won't create open looks for Bane and others. He is a developmental coach at this stage. We need better coaching. And there are some like Malone. I really like Mose, but it is what it is. He's the problem in my opinion. Again, can't be mad at that. We had a conversation last podcast about the idea of maybe Mose being the Orlando Magic's Mark Jackson, being a guy that from a developmental perspective, he has done all that he can do. Mark Jackson could only take Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green so far with the rah-rah player development first, players coach mentality for the longest. And it took somebody with a little bit more offensive innovation like Steve Kerr to come in and really open up that team in a totally different light, where they became this juggernaut of an offense and by proxy ended up becoming a much better defensive team and eventually becoming like dang near dynastic, right? So maybe Mose is that guy. Maybe Mose is the Mark Jackson for this team. And there's a guy down the pipeline with a little bit more innovation that can really take this team to the next level. I don't think we're going to see what that looks like or see if that does come to fruition until after the year is over. But that's why I say let's compile the names now, because I think that the coaching candidates that are available right now are going to stay available by the summer. I don't think anybody's making a coaching fire and hire in the same season this year. So I think the pool of guys that we're thinking of, the Thibodeaus, the Malones, those guys I think are going to be available this summer. So the question is just, what does Mose do? Because this seat is only as hot as Mose makes it in terms of this team's ability to perform on a night-to-night basis. So if he can get these boys back rolling, they'll be fine. If he can't, these names will be available. And it'll be easy to figure that out. As far as him being able to run offense and stuff like that, I do think we've gotten to a point where innovation-wise, maybe Mose just isn't there. They did hire essentially an offensive coordinator over the summer. Maybe it's just like the innovation of it all is just still taking some time to develop because it is a new offense they're trying to pick up the play style from. They've never played this fast. They've never relied on Paulo as a ball handler this much. They've never had a 3-point shooter with the ability to space the floor like Desmond, regardless of how he's shooting the rock this year. Like, they've never empowered guys like Tristan and Anthony Black as ball handlers and decision makers offensively, in terms of like trying to seek out their shot as much as they are this season. There's a lot of different moving parts for this team. So maybe the offensive coordinator is trying to implement more over time, and it's just taking a second for it all to kind of click. Only time will tell. With all that being said, this has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Again, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. I'm telling y'all, I'm trying to drop gems over here in terms of covering every single game. And the things I say, I watch the tape. This is not a stat sheet reading kind of podcast. We don't just read the scoreboard, regurgitate it back, and then just talk around it. No. We watch games over here. This Orlando Magic team is getting as in-depth of a breakdown as they can every single time they play. And I felt like this was a good game for the Magic to build off of. And if they're able to get this game against the Knicks on Wednesday, I think it's going to be the start of something that slowly but surely turns their season around. So you want to be subscribed. You want to hit that post notification bell so you always are locked in for the vids. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. But until then, peace.